Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a deep dive into the world of college admissions.
Hi, I'm Susan, and I'm a college counselor and have read applications for a small liberal arts college and 2 research universities. My twins are recent college graduates.
I'm Mark Stucker, and I'm the founder and producer. Our mission is to make college knowledge available to all. We care deeply about your kid. We believe college is a match to be made and not a prize to be won. We believe in being genuine and transparent. We are committed to covering a variety of topics, including the tough subjects. Thanks to your generosity, we're committed to providing a minimum of 10 hours of fresh, commercial-free content every month, with episodes every Monday and Thursday. We have a variety of co-hosts because we believe and value diverse perspectives. You're our listening family, and we get great joy every time we meet with you as we do our best to give you tools so your students can soar and reach their limitless potential. Good morning, friends. I am in a fantastic mood today. Of course, I'm always look forward to meeting with you guys, our listening family. Whether I'm in a good mood or not is going to pick me up. But today I come in already in a good mood. There's a couple things going on. First of all, Joy is here. She doesn't get back here very often. She's so busy. And she's with her serious boyfriend. And you know what? Anisha and I really, really like him a lot. So he actually was born in the Ivory Coast, and then he moved to Roanoke, Virginia at age 9 and went on to play soccer at UVA. And it was UCLA and UVA. Those were his choices, and they were the top 2 programs in the country. So he's incredibly talented. Then he went to work for Deloitte and Consulting for a while, and now he's in the soccer business. So he evaluates tapes and lets players know what level they can play at, both in college, helps them know what skills they need to work on. He runs soccer camps. So we're kind of like similar kind of fields. We have a lot in common, talking about like kids in college and athletics. And so it's just been really, really, really nice having them here. It's just kind of nice when, he's 31 and Joy's about to be 28. When they're that age, they're pretty serious. So, it's kind of nice to know that your daughter's got good taste. Not that I didn't know that already. But when you meet someone that has a decent chance of this thing going the distance and you really like them a lot, it's enough to put you in a great mood. The other reason why I'm in a great mood is because we launch our YouTube channel in 2 days. And that's if you're listening to this on the Monday. Listen to it on Tuesday or Wednesday. It might already be live. And I'm going to say a few things about our YouTube channel. And so we're going to run 5 short videos and then 1 long form video. And we're launching with 6 videos. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the videos. So if you tune in on Wednesday, and it's just Your College Bound Kid podcast. So, that's the same. We're sticking with the same name, just video style. So the very first video, we'll have an intro video explaining the channel. But other than that, the first video you're going to hear is a grinding my gears video with Susan, Christina, and me. And so that one's going to be up there. You're going to have to tune in to see what's grinding our gears. We got another grinding your gears video. That one's with Hillary and me. And then we have one from our frequently asked questions series, which we're starting. That's Vince. Vince will join me for that. Vince coming out of retirement. We haven't had Vince on since 2025. And then we got another frequently asked questions video up by Kevin. These are all short form videos. And then one more, Carter joins me. So you're seeing at least half our team in right off the shoot. And then there'll be 1 long form interview, and it's with the major thought leader. It's about 42 minutes. A New York Times best-selling author. I think you're going to like it. So what I'm not going to do is tell you what the content is. That's my tease, but I'm telling you who's going to be on them and what you can expect if you tune in on Wednesday. Now, I was still a couple of people, and they're like, this video thing, this sounds great, but I love to listen audibly. I walk my dog, I'm driving. You know what? You can always listen to it as an audio. That's absolutely fine. You'll still get the same content. If you listen to it visually, of course, you'll get that added dimension. But now you got choices. It's our goal to have complete separate content for this short form videos. See if we can pull it off. I think we can. As far as these long form interviews, they will air on YouTube first, and then we'll bring them over to the Audible podcast. So, we're not Superman. We can't just completely produce. We're going to a daily podcast. We can't completely produce 7 completely unique episodes, but pretty close to it. Everything else will be unique, and we hope you'll check it out. And we'd love to have you put your comments in give us feedback in the comments section. One of the major reasons I wanted to do YouTube, and I'll share this with you, for probably 6 or 7 years, I wanted to have a community where we could communicate with each other. And I looked into different things. Like, I can't tell you how many times I went back and forth with seeing if we wanted to establish our own private Facebook group just for your College Bound Kid listeners. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, I said, well, you know what? We could use Twitter because of the back and forth. But then when Crazy took over Twitter, I had to back off that. So I've been kind of looking for a forum, and YouTube's going to be it because you can interact in the comments and I'm going to interact. I'm going to respond back. Other co-hosts can respond back. In the past, I haven't really had an opportunity to do that. If someone's like, I want to interact with you, kind of the only option was to hire me privately, which not everybody wants to do. So now there's another option. Of course, I'm not going to be camping out, spend an hour on a response, but I'm looking forward to interacting with our listeners, looking forward to you sharing ideas for videos. A lot of our best ideas come from listeners. This whole YouTube channel, the whole idea of even having a YouTube channel came from one of our podcast listeners. So yeah, we're good. We're excited. Hope you'll tune on Wednesday and check it out. Moving to YCBK Daily. Still going to have your Monday, Thursday here, but now you're going to have Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday on YouTube. Very exciting. All right, let's talk about today's episode. So we're going to have a question from a listener, and it's a great one, Katie from Texas. We really like it when these listeners hear something we say and then they reply and follow up. That's good. I'm not saying every question has to be that way, but we welcome that. And Katie, there was something that was said in the Dan Chambliss interview that she just kind of questioned a little bit and asked if we could comment on it a little bit more. It's going to make for a great question with Susan. And I think you're going to like it. Hey, let me stop beating around the bushes. The question basically has to do with, is it really true that you can get a degree in the liberal arts or in the humanities and be gainfully employed if you don't go the STEM path? And it comes from a teacher in the humanities. So that's what gave us the question a little bit of heft. So we kind of unpack that from a lot of different angles. So that's our question from our listener. And then after that, you'll hear the last part of the Providence College interview with Owen Blight, Dean of Admissions. And here we go. See if I can get it right. I'm gonna go for interim because it's easier to not mess that up. Interim Vice President of Enrollment Management. Hopefully they'll remove that interim and give him the full title, Owen Blight, Providence College graduate. We stay on the admissions topic for a bit, like we did last time. We stay on admissions, how admissions works at Providence, and then, of course, he goes on the hot seat. So that's our agenda for today. And without any further ado, let's transition to the question from a listener from Katie from Texas.
And now it's time for a question from one of our listeners.
Hi, Susan.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good. We have a fantastic question. So genuine, so heartfelt. It's from Katie from Texas. I love these questions where people follow up on something that was said before.
Right.
So I'm going to play the question. And Susan, I want to see where you take it. I'm curious if you and I are both thinking the same thing on this one.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katie from Texas. And first of all, I love the show. And I really am so grateful for all of the college advice that you all give out here. And I've listened to every single episode. I wanted to chime in on the interview with Daniel Chambliss regarding the value of a liberal arts major. I'm a history teacher, and I absolutely see the value of the liberal arts and agree that the way thinking encouraged in these disciplines is valuable in the workforce. I also think it's important for people to pursue their passions. However, I felt the discussion was a little bit one-sided. While it's inspiring to hear stories of humanities and other liberal arts majors landing great careers, I wonder if those success stories might be the exception rather than the rule, perhaps driven more by personal connections or the prestige of a high-profile school. Realistically, many students are taking on debt and they go to regional public universities, and they're rightfully focused on their return on investment immediately after graduation. In my experience, the liberal arts programs focus on academic preparation for grad studies, whereas STEM and business programs emphasize the practical, job-ready skills sought after by employers. If humanities programs want to stay competitive, I feel they need to do a better job of facilitating internships and helping students translate their skills to hiring managers who might not automatically see the value of a philosophy or an English degree. I'd love to hear future episodes featuring schools that are actually doing a great job of helping liberal arts majors become gainfully employed. I still firmly believe in the value of liberal arts, but given the high cost of college today, students and parents are rightfully hesitant. Thank you for always sparking such great conversations, and I look forward to hearing more from you about this. Thank you.
Take it away.
Wow. I sure can see both sides of this, Mark.
Yes.
And I have for a long time.
Yeah.
I've thought about this since my own traditional 4-year liberal arts education, where it was much more the norm.
Yeah.
Much more the norm. Fewer students, I think, in that time were going straight into professional programs, or if they were, that wasn't my milieu.
Sure.
Then, later when I started my admissions career and I was at Bates, which was, you don't get any more traditional 4-year liberal arts experience than those small New England schools of, 2,000 students in small towns. And they're very much incubators for kids who are on an intellectual journey and have not kind of predetermined that they are on a professional path, which they want to begin pursuing at the expense of anything else. So that sets you up a little bit with my opinion. But now, working with kids for decades and decades, I've developed a tremendous respect for the fact that intellectually, kids are in a lot of different places. We saw this at our school, when we worked together, and I've seen it working as a counselor since then, and in reading applications for 2 universities in recent years that had a division of liberal arts and a division of engineering and a business school. When you think of the term college, I still think of a liberal arts college, which is a 4-year, may have some pre-professional majors, but it's an exploratory model of education versus the schools where I've been reading, where there is a college for that within a university, but then also reading applications for kids seeking direct entry into business or engineering. You might also think of nursing in that category, journalism and communications, some of the applied sciences. So that's been where you and I as college counselors live now, because the tide has shifted enormously away from kind of the precious model of, art for art's sake, intellectual exploration for the sake of, the development of the mind, which is noble, but it was an easier sell when you could go to a liberal arts college for $8,000 or $10,000 a year. I'm not talking about 100 years ago.
Right.
It's in our lifetime that the costs have.
So that's
have done
the side
that
where you're sympathetic to Katie's perspective, but you said you see another side. What's the other side you see?
Well, I think a lot of kids are and the term is identity foreclosure. This is the psychologist in me coming out, but psychologists have a term for kids who make premature decisions without enough information on something that then has a huge impact on their experience. And we work with them, we work with the kids who are, finance or whatever the major is, they have glommed onto it. For a lot of years, it was pre-med, then it was pre-law. And now kids don't want pre-anything. They want to go right into something that's going to have immediate payback and cachet. And some of that is financial pressure because they're spending a lot on their education. They may actually not want to do grad school right away. They may want to go right into a lucrative paying position and maybe have their business pay for that. There are lots of ways to look at this. So to Katie, I would say that there's the traditional 4-year liberal arts experience is a luxury. I read a great article by a Harvard professor about, the luxury of liberal arts education. And it is, especially if you're in the donut hole, as Christina puts it, of the family that is not going to get need-based financial aid, but can't possibly pay between $60,000 and, $100,000 a year out of pocket, right? And that level of financial investment, especially for private schools, or if you're going to be out of state at a public flagship, is really they've got to have an ROI attached to that says that might be worth it. Families can't borrow the way they used to. We used to caution families against borrowing excessively, right? Where the burden of debt would be so tremendous. But now with the federal limits on the parent loan, the plus loan program, students never could borrow very much, peanuts,
Right.
basically.
Yep.
It's just not gonna make sense. It's not gonna make sense in terms of ROI for a lot of kids, and it's not gonna make sense in terms of the usability. My worry is most kids need to explore. So when you have a student who, I'm good at math, is the presenting skill.
Mhm.
I'm good at math.
Mhm.
I made it through calculus and I loved it. And then they're immediately trying to turn that into the professional degree kind of destiny that has the big return on investment. Whereas that student should be looking at data analytics, at engineering, at business, at quantum computing. I was reading about a field of geography today for one of my students who's interested in the intersection of engineering and geography, geometrics, which is exactly that place where geography and engineering meets. Who knew? So even that student who presents as good at math has probably 6 or 8 things they should be considering.
Another one is actuarial science. That's a great
yes.
booming job for great people who are great at math, statistician, data science. Susan, I approach it maybe a little different perspective. And I think it's partly because I have a psychology degree, undergrad.
Well, here we go.
And a theology degree, master's. And I remember when I was first looking at getting a psychology degree, my very highly educated aunt, said, you better get a PhD because it's PhD or bust with psychology. But I've had a lot of different jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
I did 3 years of market research. No, I did 6 years of professional business to business sales. I was in Christian ministry for a while. And then I've done admissions, college counseling for like 26 years. And, I just thought of another job that I had where you would think you need to get some background in that area. I did fundraising. I was director of annual giving. Once again, a psychology undergraduate degree and a theology master's didn't stop me from getting that. My psychology degree never hurt me for any of those. So the reason why I approach it a little differently is because 70% of people are not working in a job related to their major. And I think here's where I agree with Katie 100%. She said schools that offer these types of majors really need to be building internship pathways. And I agree 100% with that.
Me too.
100%. And here's where else I would agree. Let's say I have someone that wants to major in art history because they want to have a career in art history. Well, then I think you need to really have an honest conversation. There's not a ton of art history jobs out there, and you need to know that there's some risk here. There is some risk. On the other hand, when you're really, really passionate about something,
right,
you can make it work. You know what? I did a little research before we came in, and one of the jobs that leads to the lowest average salary is a degree in a foreign language. So Kara's degree is in Spanish. No, this is my oldest daughter. Sure, she was a Spanish teacher at a middle school and high school at a private school for a while and didn't get paid a lot. But now she has a Spanish tutoring business and she does really fine because she's good at what she does. Not only knowledge of the language, people's skills. So I think the role of passion is very important in how much you love something.
I agree.
But I also think because the majority of people don't end up doing that thing, they can get all the benefit of they loved English, they loved history, they love philosophy, they love the political science. They get to train their mind to become a really good interdisciplinary thinker. They become an interesting person doing something they love. And then they catapult from that into something else. And that foundation serves them well.
Right. Law, business, academics.
Lots of things.
Communications, journalism, you name it.
Or it could just be something sales. Like there's professions like sales and admissions that they don't care what your degree. You need a degree to do professional sales. It doesn't matter what it is. A lot of the professional admissions jobs, you need a degree. It doesn't matter what it is. Could be acting. So there are lots of things, you can't say, I'm going to be a nurse practitioner or something. Oh, I'm probably partly influenced by my own experience like we all are. So I agree with Katie from the standpoint of, if you definitely want to go into something narrow casted with some of those degrees, there should be some reality conversations. Like it's going to be it's almost like the person that says, I want to go to Los Angeles because I want to make it in Broadway, but I really, really want to do it. You might have to be some straight talk and say, you need to know the odds are tough, but you really want to do it and go for it. This is your life. This is, I don't disagree with some of that. But because I see so many people not exactly doing the thing that lined up with their major,
it doesn't mean they're a failure.
Well, not doesn't that mean that they're a failure. You can kind of have your cake and eat it too. You can study the thing that you loved. You can become an interesting person. You become a very good critical thinker. And then you can still end up doing something later if you pick something that you enjoy, that you love. So I don't think that way. Like, Joy, her undergrad was sociology and Black studies. And she absolutely loved those courses, loved her coursework. Now she works in the Keenan Flagler Business School as a wellness coach.
Right. For which she got a professional degree.
She did. She did get a master's in counseling. She got a master's in counseling.
Yeah.
After working for a while. But there would be a person that would say, don't get a degree in psychology or in Black studies. Like, those are dead end spots.
Oh, that's so not true.
Yeah. So I encourage people. Like, I have no problem. I just look at myself as a parent. Like, I didn't think when Joy was doing that, like, oh, geez, how's she going to get a job with that? I just feel like, go, like, study what you want and it'll work out. But I don't want to make it sound like pixie dust either. Like, I do believe you need a strategy.
Right.
And I think you need a plan. And I think that plan and strategy normally comes from internships and networking. Internships, networking. And if you really love something, most of the time it can work out for you. It's when people either don't network, don't have good people skills, don't get internships, or they just quit right away, that those are normally the times when I see it not working out. So there is a balance, because there's no doubt that there are some jobs that there are less of them than others. And it would be wrong to not be honest about that. Which was interesting, because she was referring to Daniel Chambliss, right? And he had him on twice. He wrote, he got that $1 million grant from the Mellon Foundation to look at how college works. I had him on the first time. And the second time was around the value of college. And of course, he did something masterful, which was he compiled research on all of the students that got sociology degrees and what they're doing now. But one of the points Katie brought up was, well, is it the reason why it worked for him was because he was at a highly selective school? So she brought that point up. I think it's a great question to ask, because I think we need to talk through all aspects of this, right? Like, what if somebody goes to a really nondescript regional school? Does that play a role? Without having tons more data, it's hard to completely decipher. Like, what role is the person that you're around and the network that comes from who you're around right there? Like, I certainly can't say those are non-factors. I think that I even think like Joy. So Joy went to University of Georgia for undergrad. When she applied to NC State, and those programs are really competitive getting into those programs. They're not easy to get into. So the director of the program and the associate director at NC State, they both got their degrees at Georgia. So did that help? You can't argue that it hurt.
Right.
No, it was a very competitive program to get in, and the director, and so they kind of knew what her background was.
Yeah, they knew. Sure.
So would that have happened if she would have gone to North Georgia or something, or like one of the directional schools? You don't know. You don't know. And I think it's a legitimate question to ask. I certainly would say it's not going to be a list of 20 schools you need to go to. I think people underestimate flagships and land-grant colleges, which have big alumni databases, name recognition.
Look at Penn State.
Yes. Yeah. Like, schools like that are credible for setting yourself up. So I think there's something to be said for, something this family said to me, and I really appreciated this. Family I worked with last year, pretty adorable family. I was a little concerned they were going to be so into name, and then they were going to be disappointed, because all over their questionnaire was like importance of name. And both the parents had gone to very much name brand schools. And I could take a look at the student, and I felt like, okay, this might not be the student that's going to have those opportunities. So we always get a little worried about that. So then the dad said something to me really, really impressive to me. Name matters to me, but I'm not one of these people that thinks there's only 20 good schools. There's at least a couple hundred.
Wow.
And that opens up all kinds of opportunities, because with a couple hundred, you don't have to be the 398 kid who gets the 1550 and has all the leadership. You don't have to be that kid. So to the extent to which name matters, it's not 20 names. It's not 50 names. It's more like, and if it even does, but it certainly doesn't hurt, going to a place where there's a large network when we're saying networking matters. So those are all my thoughts. I'm kind of rambling all over,
Well, but I think it's very smart, Mark.
Yeah.
And Katie's like, well, how do we find out? How do we know? And, look at what a college brags about. First look at the structure of their career development and counseling program.
Yeah.
Now, there are a few schools out there that are on co-op calendars, and that it's very easy to read there how they build those full-time work experiences into the curriculum. They're few and far between, right? We can ignore Northeastern, Drexel, Cincinnati, Waterloo up in Ontario. Or is it McMaster? No, it's McMaster.
No, it's Waterloo. Both my brother and sister went there.
I knew it. Sorry, I confused them. But they're very
North Carolina
few.
A&T and Cat HBCU. They're fantastic. Georgia
so,
Tech.
That is a very particular kind of model. Beyond that, you've got to look not just at, our students do internships. You have to look at everything on the website, maybe even interview with the career development office, ask for an informational interview on Zoom, or obviously if you're on a campus, those people, but find out how these are structured and built into the student's experience. Because the super undecided student, or the one with many, many interests, may be the last one to walk through the doors of the career development office, right? Talk to the chair of the faculty department about how students access those opportunities. Look on the website of the engineering department or the history department. Look for examples, not just of student research, but of student work experience, summer, semester, you name it.
I also think you really can reach out to the Department of Institutional Research to see if they have any data on how kids have done from different degrees. And you can reach out to the careers, and you can reach out to the Career Center and see what data they have. They may or may not have that, or they may or may not share that, but you can ask, like, I'm trying to find out graduates in criminology, what did they end up doing? Afterwards. It's worth asking. I mean, different schools do a better job than others at collecting and or sharing. But those are things I ask my families to do. Reach out to institutional research and, and see what. So that's really, I'm glad you didn't miss that Katie did ask that question. That's an important component of how can you know? And I do think that people should be looking at that. Of course, people talk about
some young alumni.
People talk about going to college scorecard because college scorecard is now breaking out like data by major. So you can at least compare salaries by school by major now in a way that you couldn't. But the only thing that I warn people about college scorecard is that when you live in a higher cost area, the salaries are going to be higher. So it's impressive that a school that I hold in really high regard, this Santa Clara University, it's impressive that they have the 8th highest salary in the country, but it's also the Bay Area is very expensive.
Oh my gosh.
And so you need to pay more, and you will find that like people that, are working in schools like the New Yorks and the San Franciscos and that they have to have higher salaries because the cost is higher. So that skews sometimes that salary data a little bit.
You can also ask to speak with young alumni, and generally you'll get those connections through the Career Center or through the academic department. Sometimes even you have more luck with the academic department because a college can't give out names and contact information, but often they have, like at my university, I signed up a long time ago to be a reference for students interested in higher education back when I had first started my career at the college level. And I just think it's a great idea to talk to someone 5 or 10 years out about how they got started. What was influential in their undergraduate experience? What did they take advantage of? What did they feel was missing? What was available to them and what do they wish had been? And those things I think are just that kind of networking lets you know a lot about kind of retrospective opinions of the place. Now, granted, these are volunteers who had something good to say, but when a family puts together all these sources of information, the book that I like to Mark, I don't know if you recommend it, but the College Transitions book, College is Worth Your Money.
Yeah, I love that book.
It's one of the only,
It's got such great data specific. Like they have stuff like what's the ratio of students to counselors in the Career Center, so you can see how well staffed they are. It's really worth it. It's
very quantitative.
Very quantitative. They put a lot of research in. I really like that book a lot. They do a great job.
A lot of
another thing I'll throw out for business majors. Poets and Quants does an alumni survey for business majors, and Yeah, you have to check it out. For many reasons, we don't like these cumulative rankings, especially when they're overall school. You do have to unpack and look at how the formula is used. Now, one of the things that I like is they have a category, because Poets and Quants is, listeners, it's all business. Everything they do is all business. They have a category in their alumni survey that simply says, would you go to your undergraduate college all over again? And they sent out, friends, you're getting your big numbers right embedded in a question from a listener here this time. They sent out in the 2026 one, they sent out 53,372 surveys, and they got 6,061 responses. So that's a big number.
Huge.
And I've seen years where places like TCU have been as high as number 2. Would you go to your school all over again? When you're asking that and you're getting over 6,000 responses, that's noteworthy too. Check it out. It's a great tool. If you're interested in business, check out their alumni survey, and especially that question, would you go to your business school all over again? When we're talking 6,000, I mean, it's not 60 here. It's not 6, it's over 6,000. It's an interesting, because you'll see a lot of the schools that are like unheralded gems come to the top. All right, Susan. So I happened to look this up. I'm going to tell you from the 2026 survey that here's the exact wording. Would you recommend your business program to a close friend, colleague, or family member? Which is powerful, right? You went there. Would you recommend it to your close friend, colleague, or family member? Number 1 in the country, McIntyre, UVA. Number 2, Scheller, Georgia Tech. Number 3, UPenn, Wharton. Number 4, Marquette University.
Wow.
So see how it surfaces gems? Number 5, University of Notre Dame, Mendoza. So, and it keeps going, but it can be a great way to surface some schools for some people that they might not have thought of. And then you come with some, you come with some data like that. And I've used this, and people can take sometimes this stuff very seriously. Wow. Majority of people say they'd recommend it to a friend, especially because the sample size is 6,000. Now, it only works for business. It'd be nice to have something like this for every major.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
Out there. And it varies from year to year. So I'd say look at a few of these. Like I know TCU was second one year. They never cracked the top 5, in the most recent one.
And is that for graduate degrees in business, Mark, or undergrad?
This is undergrad, which I like. They have separate ones for grad. This is specifically their undergraduate. And they have other things too, like, they have other categories. But I particularly like this one because it does touch on the experiential. Like, yeah, would you recommend it? Like, you went there. Now, your opinion, was it worth it? I'm glad I looked up the exact wordings. I'm asking it to pull me more than the top 5 here. Here we go. I'm going to continue. This is pretty cool. So you might find this interesting, Susan. It asks the question, which schools do you feel prepared you for work in the real world? Top 5 there. Evansville, Schroeder, then Georgia Tech, Scheller, Notre Dame, Mendoza, USC, Marshall, Virginia, McIntyre. Which schools were worth the cost in tuition? Top 5, Georgia Tech, Scheller, BYU, Marriott, UVA, McIntyre, Binghamton cracked the top 5, and then Illinois Geese School of Business. So it's a really cool way to move beyond rankings.
Yeah.
And look at, you're going to have fun. You got to go check it out. Go check out
Absolutely.
Poets and Quants alumni survey. Those are kinds of things I think that are useful data. It's different than some U.S. news saying, oh, we're going to give 25% of the weight, or maybe they lowered it to 17 based on what peers think of your school when they haven't even visited. What a bunch of nonsense.
Crazy.
Katie, this was a great question. Send in more. We're thrilled to have you as a listener. Thanks, Susan, as always. Friends, I was just thinking about what Daniel said in his interview. And one of the points he made that was really, really, really important, and I meant to bring it up with Susan, I didn't think about it, but I thought about it now. So as the editor, I have the luxury of being able to throw in some things when I think about them like this. So one thing that Daniel said was that you can't look at liberal arts or humanities graduates in their first 5 years. They have a tendency to find themselves in their 20s, and then they really hit stride in their 30s. And I would say that's true for me. I would say that's true for my own daughter, Karis. And he talked about Florida's literally putting out these stats of average salary by major after 1 year. So of course, social sciences look bad. Of course, humanities look bad. But these are the kinds of backgrounds where over time, that critical thinking skills, that ability to integrate knowledge pays great dividends, but it's not always right out of the chute. And I think it's really important when you're trying to evaluate the vitality of those kinds of majors that you don't look at first couple years out of college. So hopefully that's helpful. Friends, there's another school that I don't even know how we missed it. Susan and I were talking because it's the preeminent example of co-op more than any school that I could even think of. And we've had the president on here to talk about it. And I'm talking about Kettering. You know, Kettering. Like, they do complete full co-op. Like, really nobody else does. Kettering University, private university in Flint, Michigan. It's known for its specialized focus on co-op in STEM-driven programs. It's been around since 1919. And it's widely recognized for a very unique model where students go back and forth between 11-week academic terms on campus and 12-week full-time terms with an employer. And they do that, you know, throughout their time at Kettering. And the placement coming out of there is ridiculous. So I encourage you to go back and listen to our interview with Dr. Robert McMahon. He's been the president at Kettering since 2011, former physicist. He's had multiple high-level positions in education, including roles at Western Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill. He's got quite the pedigree in terms of his own educational background. He's quite an influential leader. And he did an interview with us on Your College Bound Kid that when I saw our survey, we might have had more responses to that interview than any other one. So yeah, got to include Kettering when we talk about schools that are full-blown cooperative models. Co-op models are very common for like engineering, math, science, you know, STEM, but we're talking about full co-op schools. So friends, that completes our question from a listener. Let's transition to the final part of my interview with Owen Blight from Providence College.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
So friends, we've reached the final part of the Owen Blight interview, and we continue talking about admissions. We continue talking about different things admissions looks for, doesn't look for, how an applicant is read, how a file is read. Once again, I love it when I interview someone who's honest and straightforward and transparent. That is Owen. And so we all learn things. I learned some things. I think you will learn some things. And then, of course, I got to put him on the hot seat. So we close with Owen going on the hot seat. Listen and enjoy. So Owen, is there anything we haven't said about Providence that you would want our listeners to know?
Oh, I feel like we've covered quite a bit.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of turf. We started out with some of the history, mission, religious, orientation, and then got into some of the stronger programs, and then we got into some of like my perceptions from through the lens of my students. And I think we covered a good amount of ground on that,
Yeah. No,
Are there
absolutely.
any programs besides business and nursing that you think, kind of deserve getting heralded and shouted out?
Yeah, I quickly referenced one, and this is going to be more a niche one, not one driving significant enrollment, but being the first college in the country to have a major in public and community service studies.
Nice.
And it's about 10 students. Many more will minor in it to kind of add that social justice slant, but uses a community work study model. It's an incredible program that about 20 colleges have copied since, but for a student who's looking for maybe nonprofit administration, looking to go into helping people, it's an awesome one. The other one I would maybe just shout out is health policy and management.
Mm-hmm.
Before we had our School of Nursing and Health Sciences, this was the one program that existed, and it's unique in that it does kind of what it says. It has the business side of healthcare, but also political scientists teaching in it. So you're learning about the trends that have happened in healthcare and health insurance, and it adds a nice lens to our nursing and health science programs to help those students understand the world in which they're going to be delivering their practice. But it's also one of the programs that will enroll 10 to 15 students each year into it. We'll graduate about 80 with a degree in it. So it's one of those where like a student takes the class. I mean, we host the Northeast Undergraduate Research Conference in that field. Like it sparks an interest. And so it's one that I think when we in the field all talk about loving undeclared students, it's because they find a passion or an interest in that once they arrive to us. It's not a field you can often study in high school.
Let's talk about what some schools refer to as high impact experiences, and tell me your thoughts on how Providence does. Now we know and you've already mentioned it, that your students are very actively involved in service. In fact, I was going to bring it up as a feedback from families, but you hit that point really well, so I never even brought that up. So we know there's a strong commitment to involvement in service, but how would you feel you do when it comes to things like, interns, co-ops, study abroad, study away, mentorship, things like that? How would you say Providence does?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of all of those things, and where it helps kind of students the most. So for study abroad, for example, over 60% of our students study internationally, and we have our own programs that we run in London and in Rome. But then there's about 300 that other students can choose from. Over almost 90% of our students do an internship. And it's not, about half of the majors require them, but it's not required of the student body overall. But they're connecting with a local alum or a faculty member who teaches in a field. And they're seeing that as the thing that moves them towards kind of graduation or research. So I don't know that we have kind of the like co-op model where perhaps the entire student body is doing this as a prescribed thing, but whether it be abroad or internships, we have a first year experience, a number of different kind of opportunities available, and students choose the one that's right for them.
And I'm glad you mentioned research, because I knew I was forgetting one. Now, for your internships, 90%, that's a big number. There are places where people are getting internships, but as one of my clients said to me, it's all being done by the parents and the parents' connections, versus places where like the Career Center is really facilitating a lot of it, and it's really being done by the school. Do you feel like Providence is really active, like the Career Center is really integral in making those connections for the Providence students?
Yeah, they do a nice job. The Chirico Career Center is centralized, and they're in the student center, so they're visible. They're a known kind of entity for our entire student body. But then they do also have specialists in each of the academic schools who tailor their work specifically towards the field that a student's looking to go in. So it's almost two opportunities for them to catch students. And then when it comes to kind of the who's doing the work of it, I would say they put responsibility on the students. Like, they're not going to track you down to meet with your career coach. You can meet with them at orientation, or you could meet with them the day before graduation, and either is fine, but their preference would be sooner. And so they'll do practice interviews, they'll do resume review, they'll connect you with alumni mentors. So all of those things are there, but not necessarily prescribed. More, we expect students to take advantage of them, and they're ready for them when they want to.
What about things like advising, academic success center, mental health support, those kinds of things? Do you feel like their support services are strong?
Yeah. Our advising from an academic standpoint was redone 2 or 3 years ago. And so we have the Student Success Center, which is now kind of a one-stop shop. We found that students were perhaps getting caught in some of the higher ed, I don't know what the term would be, navigating higher ed complexities. And it didn't matter to them whether they needed the writing center, the tutoring center, accessibility, student athlete support. And so the Student Success Center has folded it all into one. And
I like that.
Yeah, involves both faculty advisors, but we also made the change where, like, we don't necessarily need our faculty providing the PIN for course registration to every student. A professional advisor can do that better. And let's have our faculty member talk about the field, talk about research, talk about things that actually matter, rather than like a barrier towards registering for your classes. So there were some changes in that space, which has been going incredibly well. And with your other notes on Personal Counseling Center, it's been a tremendous emphasis of ours. They have almost tripled their staff in the last several years. And we're committed to not having a cap on the number of appointments, to serving students that need it, to also providing specialists. And so for students who perhaps have trauma in their past, for students of diverse racial ethnic backgrounds, for our LGBTQ students, for students who have been victims of domestic violence, number of specialists within that care team to provide services for them. So
good.
So from those professional staff to the therapy dog who wanders campus, I think that's somewhere where we know we need to stay on top of it, and they've done quite well.
Nice. No, that's great. Well, let's transition to our lighthearted round. It's a tradition we have. No first-time guest gets away without going on the hot seat in our lightning round. So
all right.
Yeah. So how do you chill? How do you relax? How do you unwind when you're not working?
Let's see. I I enjoy watching sports. So right now, I don't know when this is going to release, but right now I'm obsessed with the World Cup. So
There you
Providence
go.
has an incredible fan zone downtown with usually 8,000 fans for some of the bigger games. It's been so fun to go with different groups of friends. So anytime Fragger Sports, any others, love to go to live sports.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you, we're recording this on a Tuesday, and the first part will go live on Thursday, so that'll be fresh.
Perfect. So the World Cup
Right.
will still be going on.
Yeah, World Cup will still. U.S. got knocked out last night, but
Yep.
but World Cup is still fresh and alive. Awesome, and of course, you went to Providence. You're going to catch that athletics buzz. I should know that. What do you wish your 18-year-old self knew?
Well, this is where it's fascinating because I look at my college list from when I went through this search, and I obviously look at it now very differently, and I'm like, how did I come up with that list?
Right.
And so I was also one who decided on April 30th where I was going, which I
Wow.
now do not recommend. And so I don't know. I don't know if there's anything specific that I wish I knew. It all not to say it went perfectly, but it all
Yeah, but good for you. And that's not
all
just about college. That's not just about the college process. That's like a life question.
yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a life question. So if nothing comes to mind, nothing comes to mind. You know?
Yeah, at least nothing top of mind.
Sure. What's a book you've read that you would strongly recommend parents read?
Book. Ooh, that's a good question. On this process specifically?
No, anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
So I have a very unique genre of like books I read. I love reading stories about kind of niche things. So like I read a book a few months ago on the history of seltzer called Seltzertopia.
Well,
That was kind of interesting. I'm trying to think of some others. I think the most enjoyable book I've read recently, and I don't remember the title off the top of it, but it's the one that Bill Clinton wrote with that famous action writer. I also love things that involve like the FBI and Secret Service, anything like that. So I'm blanking on the title on it, but either of those things, either like niche business stories or thrillers kind of adjacent to politics.
What's on the bucket list? What's something you definitely want to experience while you're on this earth?
Yeah, so I checked one of them off actually 2 weeks ago, going to Iceland for vacation.
Nice.
That was always so. I guess going back to kind of what do you enjoy? Like I enjoy traveling. I have to do it a ton for my job, but enjoy doing it socially as well. So I need to decide what next year's trip is. I don't think this will be next year, but I would love to at some point go on a safari.
Awesome. If you could spend an hour over lunch with somebody famous in history, who'd you want to spend lunch with?
Someone famous in history to spend an hour.
The hot seat's harder than the Providence questions, isn't it?
Yeah, this is much more difficult. So I don't think I mentioned I was a political science major, so I think I'd go JFK.
There you go. You know, I have to ask you a political question. So if the students were to, and this, I'm just not asking you for facts. Some schools have records of mock elections, but this is just conjecture on your part. You know, how would you think Providence students would vote in an election? Like, you know, 80-20, 70-30, 90-10, 50-50? What would be your thoughts on that?
I would probably say, now talking elections overall, not necessarily for one office, I would say probably about 60-40 more conservative towards liberal. So pretty even, but I think definitely leaning one direction. Obviously, recent events have kind of changed things on our campus. I would also add, I don't think we're the most kind of politically active campus. Our students, they care about these things, but not the type of place where you're going to, I mean, you'll see protests and people care and they make their voices known, but not so much with kind of nationwide or world political issues. A lot of times
is that a bit of a draw for you within conservative circles? Because most, like obviously Rhode Island is a blue state, and most of the surrounding states, Massachusetts, tend to be, you know, more bluer, right? Do you feel like that's a little bit of a niche that you have? Would it be fair to say that you're not seen as like a conservative oasis in a blue state?
No, and I've heard of some colleges that are kind of either, I don't know if adopting is the right word, but have kind of either embraced or become that. No, I wouldn't say that way at all. This is more just me looking at the students I know on our campus and thinking about the overall kind of tone of the student body.
And a lot of times business students tend to be a little more conservative too. When you have, I've noticed that when you have a sizable business cohort.
Yep.
A lot of times you see a correlation there. So, yeah, final question. What's your advice for our three groups of listeners, which are parents, college counselors, and students?
Yeah. So I would say, I think it's mostly for students, but parents and counselors are going to be a part of this. But I think one of the things that I would suggest from students kind of at the earliest point in this process is to just decide who it is you're going to talk to about this process. People, for good reasons, love to talk about the college search. It's the reason why sometimes when I fly on an airplane, I'm wearing Providence gear. It's the reason why some other times I tell people I work in marketing, because I just need to do other things on that flight. And it's why you see it on the Today Show and front page of Wall Street Journal. And I think for students, it can become overwhelming to have feedback coming from so many different places. So to find a trusted media source, to maybe pick one sibling, obviously parents and guardians should be part of it, but to narrow that, and perhaps we just came past the 4th of July, if your aunt came up and asked where you're applying, like, change it and ask them about their experience. People love talking about their own personal college experiences. So I think having a specific list, and then when it comes to the parents, finding set time. It can be a tough thing, and my niece just went through this search process this past year. And it can be tough for parents to find the balance of, like, how much involvement is too much or not. And so maybe pick one night, and that's the only time we're talking about it. Like, I'm not going to follow up with you on the other days, but Thursday night is when we catch up on everything college. And the last week of April, that might need to be a little bit more frequent, but it at least sets the expectation and can help people prepare for it. Because while I don't love that I say we, but the collective higher ed has built a process that has some anxiety in it, like that's a real part of it. And so I think setting yourself up to manage that successfully is important.
Owen, this has been awesome. And I loved your answer, by the way. It's one that we haven't had before. And
good.
And you're getting close to interview 300. We're in the 290s. So, you don't get a lot of fresh. It's like reading essays. You don't see very many fresh things anymore when you've been doing it a while, but haven't had that answer. But just overall, thank you for being so generous with your time and being so transparent. We love transparency. And I think you really painted a real clear picture of Providence. And that's what, we get 6,000 listens from college counselors every month, and they're listening to try to figure out who to recommend. We get parents that listen, and they're trying to figure out how to build a DIYers, doing it on their own and trying to figure out what schools to take and visit with their kids. And so I think it was really, really helpful, and I really appreciate it. And you'll be at NACAC, won't you, this year?
I will. So I will absolutely see you there, and appreciate the invitation. I'm always happy to obviously chat with people who know the field so well, but also if I can ever help people move closer to understanding a potential option, I'm game for it. So I appreciate the invite.
Awesome. I'm sure will you be working the Providence table during the big fair?
Most likely.
Yeah. That is a couple hours of the most important time for me in a year. I just go line by line, and I see literally hundreds of people who and I think when you've been doing this a while, like NACAC is really more about the networking. I mean, sure, some of the sessions are great, but it's just being in one place where you can see hundreds of people that that makes it so worth it. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you in Minnesota.
Yeah, and this year, Minnesota's part of my territory, so it's almost like a home game for me.
There you go.
I'll be seeing everyone there and providing all the restaurant recs from my years of travel there. So look forward to seeing you there.
I think I'm going to hit you up off. Well, actually, let me ask you right now. Like, I'm going to be there for a full week. I'm there from the 4th through 11th. Give us a couple of restaurant recs.
Yeah, so I would say, downtown Minneapolis is great. The Newsroom, I've had some really good meals there. It's a chain, but I think it's just in the Twin Cities. There's like 3 or 4. It's a place called Crave. The menu is not as extensive as Cheesecake Factory, but they do everything really well.
Nice.
So if you want sushi, I'm thinking it's good for if you're with a group with varying tastes. The other thing, though, head over to St. Paul. Like, downtown St. Paul is really a cool area. So make sure to kind of get away from the convention center.
Sounds great. Awesome. See you there.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. So friends, on Thursday's episode, I'm finally getting to that Jed Appleruth additional content that he shared. If I don't have tech issues, I've kind of tried it a couple times and I've had tech issues. As long as I don't have tech issues, he answered some questions that listeners sent in, and it's different than, what he said a couple months ago where we went over, should you self-prep? Should you group prep? Should you do one-on-one? Should you do a hybrid model? This is more changes in the ACT, changes in the SAT, and some answers to listener questions that were sent in. And so that'll be our interview. Our question from a listener, I can tell you it will be one with Christina. Christina's back, and it will have something to do with money. That's what I'm going to tell you. I've got a few to pick from. I haven't decided which one I want to go with yet. So that'll be our lineup on Thursday. We hope you'll tune in for that. But before that, we hope you go to our YouTube channel on Wednesday. Friends, you know I can't close without saying it's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's what you do when you get there. It's what you do when you get out of there. That is what will determine your career success. See you on Thursday, friends. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us, and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about YCBK on social media. And you help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating at yourcollegeboundkid.com and clicking the donate button. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. If you have a question or suggestion, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, hit the orange button, and speak, and we will do our best to get your question or your comment in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I'm the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admission and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-hosts, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, 2 admission officers from Colorado, Hillary Dickman from Colorado College, Kate Strickland from CU Boulder, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Esquivel in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, Heath Einstein, the Chief Enrollment Officer at TCU in Fort Worth, Carter DeLauro, a co-director of college counseling in New York, and Christina Lopez, the former Dean of Admission at Barnard College, and our international college specialist, Kevin Newton from Dallas, Texas. Our stupendous sound engineer who makes everything happen is Nemanja Matvic from Serbia. Our reliable webmaster is John Rooney. Website updates are done by Joy Stucker. Image editing by Vlad Honchar. And what would we do without our volunteers? Guy Pillsbury, Sony Patel, and Andy Bernstein are all helping us with podcast marketing. Carolyn Wood, Mark Doniger, and Carrie Roberts book interviews with thought leaders. Amanda Dugan, Colleen Sinoki, Nicole Resch, Trevor Smith, Ryan Stepler, and Lynn Labash send thank yous to interviewees. If you want a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly newsletter, YCBK Plus, it's also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights and our upcoming events and receptions. And you can now do searches for past content by using our new Explore and Topics tabs. We really encourage you to explore our past content. We have close to 1,000 hours. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.